science, health and safety, technology, and investigation research, along with team resources. Since this is a featured show on the Meet Me app, I will not be able to acknowledge your comments in real time or thank you individually for your guests. But I will take a moment at the end of the show to thank you and to give some shout outs. If you have questions or comments for me, please stay after the show. Please also remember to keep the comments respectful in the chat and towards myself and my guests. Those who cannot contain themselves will be escorted out of the stream. Now, if y'all are ready, let's go into the unknown. Hello, how's everybody? Hopefully everybody's had a good weekend. I am back. Sorry about missing last week. I was a little under the weather last minute. We'll talk about that later, but let's get into the show. So, Kraken here, and you've just stepped into The Unknown, your featured show on the Meet Me app where we chase shadows, decode legends, and explore the places that history tried to forget, but the spirits never left. We go live every Sunday at 11 p.m. Eastern, and tonight, we're unlocking the gates and stepping inside of some of the most paranormally charged places in the world, haunted prisons and asylums. These aren't just buildings, they're cages for the living and some believe for the dead. We're kicking things off with paranormal news from around the world, from chilling new evidence inside an Indiana asylum to ghost hunt sleepovers in a UK prison, and even survivors speaking out about the energy that still clings to an abandoned Australian mental hospital. But that's just the beginning. We'll also cover a Turkish village pushing back against TikTok. Did I just lose my stream? Sorry, you guys. Got so much going on over here. Let's start over. Pushing back against TikTok ghost hunters, South Carolina geologists trying to debunk hauntings with fault lines and gases, and a new Thunderbird sighting soaring over Washington state, UFOs, cryptids, military misdirection, it's all coming in hot. The world's haunted history is loud this week, and the walls are whispering everywhere. Then we're diving into an opening segment called Echoes of the Forgotten, where we'll explore the idea that some of the people locked away in asylums weren't suffering from madness, but spiritual gifts misunderstood as illness. We'll also dig into the stone tape theory and why the trauma endured in places like these doesn't just fade, it gets imprinted into the very walls. After that, I'll be joined by my good friend and fellow investigator Flirty Danny for a deep dive into haunted institutions. He's got stories, insights, and some chilling personal experiences that might just have you rethinking what it means when a spirit won't move on. And finally, we'll explore some of the most notoriously haunted prisons and asylums, from Waverly Hills to Eastern State to shadowy cells still echoing with footsteps. What's causing the energy in these places to persist? And why do some spirits stay locked in, even when the doors are open? So grab your EMF reader, your holy water, and maybe a skeleton key, because tonight we're not just investigating hauntings, we're confronting the echoes of lives confined and forgotten. And we've got a lot to cover tonight. It's Sunday night, the cells are open. This is Into the Unknown. Let's get weird. Now, strap in, night crew, because the veil isn't just thinning, it's cracking. From forgotten wards and echoing cell blocks to shadowy skies and villages begging ghost hunters to back off, this week's headlines are soaked in the strange. It's time for paranormal news around the world, where restless spirits are making noise, researchers are poking holes in hauntings, and ancient energies are anything but dormant. Whether it's seismic science explaining specters, TikTok ghost hunting hunts turning into the sacred, or the Pentagon playing UFO shell games, one thing's certain: the past isn't just haunting us, it's fighting to be heard. Let's dive in and see what the spirits and the skeptics have stirred up this week. In the quiet hills of Western Turkey, a small village has become an unexpected battleground between locals and a surge of ghost hunting thrill seekers. It started with whispers, stories of ancient spirits haunting nearby ruins, of lights in the woods, of unexplained sounds echoing through stone alleys at night. But now, the locals say things have gotten too far. Armed with cameras, spirit boxes, and TikTok ambitions, self-proclaimed paranormal investigators are flooding into the village in droves. And they're not just stirring up spirits. They're disrespecting graveyards, trampling sacred land, and leaving trash and broken vibes in their wake. Residents are speaking out, saying their once peaceful home has become a circus of supernatural tourism. They're calling for respect, not just for the living, but for the dead. As one village elder put it, the spirits are real, but they don't perform on demand. If you'd like to read more about it, Somerville, South Carolina has long embraced the spooky side, but one particular hotspot, the old train station, has become the epicenter of local ghost lore. Visitors report phantom footsteps, cold spots, and full-bodied apparitions of conductors long since passed. But now a group of geologists and environmental researchers are throwing cold water on the fire. Or are they? A recent study suggests that natural underground gases and subtle seismic activity in the area could be behind the experiences. According to the research, shifting tectonic plates and fluctuating air pressure may trigger hallucinations, disorientation, and feelings of being watched, classic signs often attributed to a haunting. So is science explaining away the spirits, or are we simply learning more about the earth itself interacting with the unseen? After all, isn't it just a little too convenient that the most haunted places also tend to sit along fault lines and ley lines? To learn more, check out SmithsonianMagazine.com. On the latest broadcast of Paranormal Weekly, hosted by Jesse Morgan, he dropped a full spectrum update of everything weird, wild, and worth watching. This week's highlights include a new map of life cryptid tracker focused on Bigfoot hotspots, using AI-powered overlays to identify potential migration patterns based on footprints, sightings, and EMF disturbances. Yeah, Bigfoot now has a digital trail. Then there's Nessie. Scotland's most elusive cryptid just got another round of sonar sweeps. While nothing conclusive was found, divers report hearing strange echo-like pulses beneath the surface. And in the world of disclosure, a new batch of FOIA documents tied to UFOs was quietly released, furthering speculation that the government knows more than it lets on. Jesse's take? They're not hiding the truth, they're drip feeding it. A global report on UFO activity dropped this week, revealing that while the UK has briefly surged in 2025 reports, the United States still reigns supreme with over 105,000 documented UFO encounters since 1947. Why so many? The report credits several factors. The presence of long-standing organizations like MUFON and MUFORCE, America's obsession with UFOs and pop culture from Roswell to X-Files, and a suspiciously steady stream of military leaks and half-disclosures. Researchers also noted that the sheer volume of sightings suggests a psychological and cultural fixation, one fueled by both belief and misinformation. But if even a fraction of those reports are real, what are we actually dealing with? For more information, check out the Indian Express Economic Times. Now, hold on to your hats. Something massive is in the skies above the whole rainforest in Washington. A recent Reddit post from a seasoned backpacker claims they witnessed a giant black bird with a wingspan larger than a car gliding above the canopy. The creature, dubbed a thundercrow by the cryptid community, allegedly made no sound and vanished mid-flight behind a ridge. Descriptions match Native American lore of the thunderbird, an omen of storms, power, and transformation. Skeptics say it was a bald eagle. Believers say this isn't the first time something otherworldly has been seen circling these skies. And online forums? They're already buzzing with maps, diagrams, and blurry zooms. A new investigation into the Cold War era documents reveals something jaw-dropping. The U.S. military may have intentionally planted UFO stories, complete with doctored images, to divert attention away from experimental aircraft and weapons testing. According to declassified files and former intelligence operatives, alien encounters were sometimes used to cover radar anomalies and explain away sightings of stealth prototypes. So here's the twist. If they lied about UFOs to hide tech, and some sightings were real, are we now looking at layers of disinfo wrapped around truth? Either way, the lines between cover-up and contact just got a lot blurrier. For more information, check out livenowfox.com. In a newly released episode, Taps takes viewers inside the notoriously haunted Randolph County Asylum in Indiana, where they captured EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, shadow figures, and disembodied footsteps echoing down its decaying corridors. The footage shows investigators visibly shaken. EVP whispers and chilling footsteps underscore why this site remains a magnet for paranormal activity. Check out their YouTube channel to watch the episode. An ABC News investigation revisited Brisbane's former Woolston Park Mental Hospital, formerly Waguru Asylum, where survivors revealed shocking conditions: locked rooms, straitjackets, unsanitary wards, and abuse, including one patient being treated worse than killers in solitary. Now boarded up and off limits, the hospital's tragic history seems to seep into its walls, prompting calls for transparency alongside appeals to protect the site's heavy energy. In the UK, Shepton Malin Prison, a centuries-old facility that once housed the Cray twins and mentally ill inmates, is rolling out overnight ghost hunts, complete with tours of the execution block, cell wards, and death row. Visitors have reported spine-tingling experiences, ice cold spots, slamming doors, and even captured EVPs telling them to get out. At £69 per night, it's become a must for paranormal thrill seekers. Michigan's Eloise Asylum, once a psychiatric hospital, poorhouse, and TB ward, has reopened select sections to the public. The elusive events provided guided sessions through sealed-off zones, including the powerhouse, attic, and firehouse, where participants reported sudden cold hits, EVPs, and presence phenomena. Despite its renovation into a haunted attraction, investigators caution that some areas still hold genuine residual energy, not just stage scares. For more information, check out Eloise Asylum's website. Now, whether it's ancient spirits demanding respect in a quiet Turkish village, seismic science stirring up ghost theories in South Carolina, or AI-powered Bigfoot trackers lighting up the cryptid map, this week's headlines prove one thing: the paranormal isn't hiding, it's evolving. That wraps up this week's paranormal news from around the world. From whistleblowers warning of government misdirection to thunderbirds sweeping back into legend, the strange is alive and kicking, and sometimes screaming from the walls of places we thought were abandoned. So whether you're tracking flight patterns, mapping hauntings, or just side-eyeing that cold spot in your hallway, remember, the unknown is everywhere. All right, ghost wranglers and riddle solvers, light your lanterns and steady your nerves, because it's time for this week's round of paranormal trivia, where the questions are locked up tight and the answers might just be whispering through the walls. Tonight, we're diving into asylum hauntings, cryptid incentives, thunderbird sightings, and a few classified cover-ups to rattle your brain and test your sixth sense. We're talking mad science versus misunderstood mediums and hauntings by geology. Think you know your shadow figures from your seismic illusions? Can you tell a cover story from a close encounter? Let's find out who's got the ghost hunting guts and who's about to get committed by trivia. First question tonight: what explanation did geologists give for paranormal activity at the Somerville train station? Number 2, what legendary cryptid was reportedly seen in Washington's Hope rainforest? Number 3, what technology is being used to track Bigfoot migration patterns? Number 4, what theories suggest some patients in historical asylums were actually spiritually gifted? Number 5, which Kentucky location is considered one of the most haunted asylums in the world? Number 6, what is the stone tape theory? Number 7, which asylum in Michigan is known for its intense hauntings and urban legends? Number 8, how many documented UFO sightings has the U.S. reported since 1947? Number 9, what is or are Danny's favorite paranormal areas? And number 10, what is one thing you probably didn't know about Flirty Danny? I'll be sharing the answers later in the show, so stay tuned, stay curious, and maybe throw a little bit of salt over your shoulder, just in case. Now, buckle up, because things are only going to get weirder from here. All right, night crew, we're just getting started, and the energy tonight is thick. Quick reminder, July 7 is coming fast, and so is our Paranormal Investigators Roundtable. And guess what? Flirty Danny, tonight's guest, will be one of the investigators on that special event. So if you've got a question for him or for the panel, slide into my DMs on IG. Your question could be one of the top 10 we feature live. Now, it's time for you to refill your drink, adjust your EMF reader, and get ready to go even deeper. All right, Let's get into our opening segment, Echoes of the Forgotten, Spirits, Sanity, and the Spaces that Hold Them, by starting with a thought that might rattle your reality just a bit. What if the people we locked away for seeing spirits were never broken, but wide awake? What if the very symptoms used to justify padded cells, visions, voices, sensitivity to energy, were actually signs of spiritual awareness? And what if those souls, misunderstood in life, are still lingering? Not to scare us, but to be heard. Tonight's show is about haunted institutions, prisons and asylums where pain was protocol and escape was often impossible. But before we talk bricks, iron bars, and solitary cells, let's talk about the souls trapped inside. In spiritual traditions across the globe, from indigenous shamans to West African diviners to Celtic seers, hearing voices or having visions wasn't a sign of illness. It was a sign of a calling. But in the rise of the industrialized medicine and asylum area, think 1850 to 1950, these gifts were pathologized. You weren't enlightened, you were unstable. Consider this. A woman in 1902 hears her dead child speak to her at night. In a village, she's a grieving mother and maybe a medium. But in a city hospital, she's diagnosed with female hysteria, sedated, and institutionalized. People were admitted to asylums for reasons like talking to the dead, spiritual delusions, hearing non-existent voices, excessive intuition, and religious excitement. Yeah, that was real. Could some of these people have been clairaudient, clairsentient, channelers? Instead of being protected, they were confined, drugged, and left to rot. And when their lives ended in those locked wards, often in isolation, often in despair, that energy didn't just vanish. Let's talk about the buildings themselves. Places like asylums and prisons are structured for control. Thick walls, no sunlight, echoing corridors. In spiritual theory, this creates the perfect container for lingering energy. Combine that with intense emotions like fear, rage, hopelessness, and abandonment, and you get a recipe for residual hauntings. Psychic imprints left behind by those who suffered without peace. Now, let's talk about one of the most endearing theories in paranormal research, the stone tape theory. The idea that emotional or traumatic events can be recorded by the physical environment and replayed like a psychic VHS tape under the right conditions. The term comes from a 1972 British film called The Stone Tape. But the idea goes back centuries. Ancient cultures believed that certain materials could hold energy, especially stone. So how does it supposedly work? The theory is that high-stress events like death, grief, fear, or rage emit emotional energy, intense and chaotic. This energy doesn't just vanish, it imprints itself into materials with high mineral content, like limestone, quartz, granite, or iron. Under the right conditions, maybe a drop in barometric pressure, a lightning storm, or even human presence, that energy is replayed. What we see as ghosts in this case aren't spirits at all. They're recordings, trauma loops, imprinted echoes, bleeding through time. Think of it like this. Instead of a haunted soul, you're seeing a haunted moment, trapped in the building's walls, floors, or even the air. You may be asking why asylums and prisons are the perfect tapes. They're built with thick limestone or granite, great for holding and conducting energy. They're often located near underground water sources, which many believe amplify residual activity. And then there's the constant exposure to trauma and repetition, fear, death, sorrow, and rage, happening again and again in the same rooms, halls, and cells. Paranormal investigators have long noted that EMF, electromagnetic field, spikes are commonly near walls or stone surfaces in these places, especially when the activity is high. Some even suggest the EM field of the human body can act like a play button. You walk into a space charged with decades of grief, and your own energy triggers the replay. So when we talk about haunted prisons or asylums, it might not always be a ghost reaching out. It might be the building itself. The stone, the wood, the metal, retelling a story that was never meant to forget. A scream down the hall, a figure pacing the corridor, a nurse who walks her rounds long after the last patient has died. Are they ghosts? Or grief etched into stone? And what happens when the recording starts to bleed into the now? Let's bring this into the real world because the evidence is everywhere. Let's first take a look at Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia. Originally built for 250 patients, It held over 2,400 at its peak. Many were committed for spiritual disorders. Ghost sightings there include shadow figures, full apparitions of nurses and patients, and EVPs of voices calling out for help. One story tells of a woman in Ward F who used to talk to angels. She was restrained and silenced. Today, investigators report hearing the woman who hums. Next is the Rolling Hills Asylum in New York. Originally a poorhouse, it became a dumping ground for society's undesirables. Reports include disembodied laughter, door slams, and physical touches. One visitor claimed to feel the overwhelming urge to pray and protect, as if someone was begging for help through them. And finally, Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Kentucky, best known for TB deaths and the infamous death chute. But many patients with nervous disorders were sent there too. Room 502 is famous. A nurse reportedly hung herself after a forced abortion, but some claim she was pregnant by a doctor after being institutionalized for her visions. Could she have been gifted and used? Could she still be waiting for justice? So what's the difference between residual hauntings and intelligent hauntings? Residual hauntings are like ghostly recordings, sounds, visions, movements that play on a loop. Intelligent hauntings react to us. They know that we're there. And guess where the lines get blurry? Prisons and asylums. You'll hear repeated screams down a hallway at 2:10 a.m. every night. That's residual. Then a sudden voice in your recorder saying, "Help me," that's intelligent. Or worse, one whispering your name. Some spirits may be playing the same scene over and over. Others, they're not just trapped, they're aware. And maybe they're waiting for someone who can finally understand them. So let me ask you this. Have you ever experienced something others call crazy, but deep down felt spiritual? Maybe a vision, or a gut feeling you couldn't shake, or maybe a voice that came in the silence and somehow felt comforting and not dangerous. Drop it in the chat. Let's break that stigma, because tonight, maybe we're not just talking about hauntings, maybe we're talking about injustice in this life and the next. And that leads us right into tonight's guest, because if there's anyone who gets what it means to listen when the rest of the world turns out, it's him. Coming up next, I'll be joined by my good friend and fellow investigator, Flirty Danny, as we explore haunted institutions, the prisons and asylums where pain isn't just remembered, it's recorded, replayed, and sometimes still reaching out. So don't go anywhere, the walls still whisper, and we're about to listen. So now you've made it halfway through the haunt, and things are only getting weirder. Coming up next, Flirty Danny joins us as we talk more about haunted locations, ghosts and hauntings, and our experiences as investigators. Also, major love out there to our top gifters. I want to call them out real quick. Our top three. Number 3 is the Phoenix. Number 2 is Rosie Smokes. And number 1 is Flirty Danny. You guys, thank you so much for the gifts. Y'all be sure and hit them with a fave. And let's make sure that we're keeping the spooky vibes alive and the shadows whispering. And don't forget, Flirty Danny, tonight's haunted locations expert, is also joining us again on July 7th for our Investigators Roundtable. You've also got a couple others in the chat as well. You've got Mikey in here, and I just saw Rocker Rebel, I can never say your name, in the chat too. So you guys are all here. So if you've got a theory or a what if for him or the rest of the crew, hit my IG, Crackin' Whips, and make it count. Now, Flirty Danny, if you are ready, request the guest box and let's get at it. When the rebel yells, we are waiting on Danny. Where is he? There he is. Welcome back to the show, my friend. I am so excited to have you back. Welcome back to the Unknown.
Yeah, I had to switch devices last minute. My stand decided to collapse. So, yes.
All that fun stuff. All right, let me do my intro for you. So, you've clocked some serious hours in the paranormal trenches, from haunted asylums and abandoned prisons to shadow-soaked battlegrounds near Gettysburg. You don't just study the paranormal, you practically live in it. So before we dive into the madness and the memories and have some fun, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience. Let folks know where they can catch your streams, the kind of content you're putting out, and any investigations or spooky events you have coming up.
Hi, I am Flirty Danny. I am right now getting back into it. I was off. I took a 2 weeks hiatus. 1, busy. 2, I got sick. So we're kind of coming back from a sinus infection, that an allergy attack turned into sinus infection, turned into a lot of things. So, so we'll just, but typically I stream during the nighttime hours between 6 and 12. Also, just catch me on Instagram. Link up with me there. It's easier because I can tell you all the events and everything I'm doing and all the shows, TV shows I can be putting out on the travel channel with the Discovery Plus network. Can't promote it too much because I don't know if I'm allowed to do that on a featured show.
Well, and you and I still need to talk about that, so we got to catch up on that. All right. So we have previously talked about your time investigating some of the most emotionally intense and paranormally active sites in the country. And one thing that really stuck with me is your take on what lingers behind closed doors. So let's talk about that. And I also want to make sure that we answer our trivia questions. So let's hit that up real quick. What is your most favorite field or fields within the paranormal?
Okay, so I am ghosted hauntings, obviously. But there has been some recent evidence brought to my attention with cryptids that are I'm finding fascinated about them. With the Loch Ness monster, Nessie. Someone showed me a video of something that has us all thinking about all the cryptids now and populations. And not just one, but maybe multiples in some cryptic forms. So, I've been working beside a paranormal group trying to figure out about populations with cryptids.
That's interesting. You know, I watched a show, and I don't remember if it was Netflix or Amazon Prime, but they did a special on Nessie, and there's actually a sonar scan that they show. There's a blip at the bottom of Loch Ness that they think might be Nessie. So it's kind of interesting to watch and talk about. And then on this side of the world, you got Lake Champlain and Champ that they are thinking could be another Nessie. So yeah, cryptids are pretty interesting to study.
There was they showed me was there's this guy Nico who actually had for the last 30 years has had a camera outside his best friend's house, which is facing Loch Ness. But they just got evidence recently, which got us all thinking of 2 Loch Ness monsters.
Oh, no, that would be interesting. That would be interesting. I know there was a picture recently taken. We talked about it in Paranormal News Around the World a couple of weeks ago. There was a picture that was taken on that was being checked out.
Rabbit hole for you to go down.
Oh, you know I love going down rabbit holes. Don't get me started. Don't get me with a good challenge. All right. Now, what is maybe 1 or 2 things that most people don't know about you?
I've worked in the haunt industry that led me in the paranormal industry since I was 9. And then it led me to the paranormal industry. It led me in the paranormal industry after I had my first experience. And then when the experiences kept on multiplying, about my mediumship of about 20 years now, and me seeing the dead. And being a clairvoyant for the unknown on the other side.
And then where did you work for a little while?
I've worked at some of the most haunted locations in the U.S. with FOS, Field of Screams Incorporated, and one of our major locations that we covered and contracts that I was signed with was working at Penhurst Asylum in Oil City, Pennsylvania. Well, Oil City / Spring City, Pennsylvania.
So now you guys all see the tie-in for the show about prisons and asylums and Flirty Danny coming on. Plus, Danny is the last of the 4 investigators coming on for the Paranormal Roundtable because everybody else has already been on the show. So this is perfect timing before the show.
And also, guys, I lived in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania for a remainder of my life in a haunted house.
So yeah, when we talk about somebody that knows about the paranormal firsthand, right here in the box. All right. So, what have we not talked about that we can talk about on the show?
Well, I don't know. There's been some recent developments with some stuff that's been going on, not just with Penhurst Asylum, but also in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I went up with when we were doing some promos and some scouting when I was last up there recently. I think in May. There's been some more developments and more stories that I've been told about.
Oh wow!
So there's been a lot of gears shifting in the wind and making us think even more now.
So that means, I don't have much vacation time left this year after all my health issues earlier this year, but that means I need to start coming and visiting you next year on some vacation.
I also need to come down there to visit you.
Mm-hmm. And I've been we're going to talk about Waverly Hills again tonight. My favorite spot. Already been there once. Want to go back again. I'm going to take a group of 9 plus me, so a group of 10. I want to go next year. I want to start getting that seriously lined up and reached out to Tina to get the place not only reserved, but let's set up for some investigation videoing and that kind of stuff. And I want you to go. So we definitely got to get it.
I will be going.
We got to get it totally worked out. Rocker Rebel. We need to put you on that list too. Come to Northern Nevada. Look, I need to do a lot of traveling next year. I just got to figure it out with my work schedule. Now that I've got Kraken's voice up and going, my YouTube channel, we definitely got to do some more and do some recording. Last time I was at Waverly Hills, I did stream live from there. We did do it. It was on an off night. It wasn't my show night. But it was really fun. We went down the death chute and did some, investigating techniques and had fun, even though I had my phone in my hand. So yeah, we had a lot of stuff going on there. So we definitely need to go do Waverly.
I have had, there's been some things happening with me where, especially when I go back home, where my phone will be fine 1 minute, 100%. Brand new phone, by the way, has gone down to literally under 10% the last 2 times I went home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've been having to keep it on a charger a lot of the time when I visit back home. So yeah, it's been
what's going on with our little shadow friend that's been visiting you at home? You guys, every once in a while, Danny has a little shadow figure come and visit him when he's in my stream and we're chit-chatting.
And we also have a bride now in my garage back home.
Oh,
Christine. Lord. We named her Christine.
After the car, Christine.
Yeah, Top Edge Kitchen has officially named her Christine.
Oh wow.
I fell asleep and I just left the stream running one night and I had a little bit of drinky drinks and I just left it in the garage because I'm like, there's a charger down there, it should be fine. I'll just get it in the morning because I was already upstairs at that point and I'm like, you know what, it's getting bedtime. You want to go to bed. Instead of going up and down the steps. And there's been already 3 people telling me in my garage, there's been from one side of the room to the other, it looks like there was a bride that just walks right across my garage when I go back home.
Wow.
The friend here has, he's been around. Well, he hasn't been around, but there's been other things around. So I talked to my friend Amy. There was a shadow figure, what I think is a shadow figure walking around the house. I've been seeing them when I go around corners and stuff, walking on the day on the property.
Oh wow!
Around the day, it just looks like it comes out and goes back, or it looks like someone's walking and then just you don't see nothing at all.
Now that's interesting. Are we catching that on camera too?
No, I haven't actually catched him or them on camera at all, to be honest. We're gonna try. But it's like it's for all of the staff on this property, it's like it just happens like 3 seconds. And you don't know when it's going on because it's mainly been happening during the daytime hours, not nighttime.
No, that's interesting.
So yes, we've God. So we've been looking into that, and I talked to Amy, and this has my mind going now. And what she's investigating and doing more science. She's like a sciencey person and likes the science of the paranormal. She's actually had multiple cases now where it looks like a shadow figure, but it's with her mediumship, she's able to detect it's a person coming across as a shadow figure. So how are these people manipulating us to thinking that they're shadow figures?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, and the stuff that she's been getting on camera and some of her evidence has led her to believe that some of these people that died that she picked up on and voices that she got from her spirit box is saying that it's not shadow figures, but people coming across as shadow figures.
Which makes you wonder why they would want to come across as shadow figures. Why are they disguising themselves, you know?
So it's been a little tense with some of me and my connections right now, but we all have something new we're studying. I talked to all of them before I came on the show, so I could ask if I could kind of talk about
it
about some of their stuff, because I don't want to ruin any momentum that they have. But like I tell people, check out my Instagram. As soon as stuff surfaces, we're going to be they're going to be going in full force with it. I'm going to be doing my little experiments here at this house, at 2 other properties, and probably all over the place. You never know where you're going to find me at.
I know where I'm going to find you at, because I'm hoping I'll be there with some of them, at least for sure for next year. We got to get a schedule next year going. That's for sure.
Yes, and I'm going to be looking into staying the night at. I'm going to see how much it is to stay a night at Penhurst Asylum. We'll see what we can do, because Travel Channel has been scouting them out again. So
nice.
We're gonna see. We're gonna see what we can store up.
We're gonna do a lot of this for the next year.
Yes, and me and my friends, our main thing is we can't find our evidence on cameras. But as soon as we turn off the cameras,
then it starts.
Those whistles go off. But as soon as the cameras are on.
Isn't that how it always is, though?
Yeah, and then we can't prove anything to anyone. Like
it's like they know. They know when it's on. They know when it's off. They're like, we're not gonna be Showtime for you. But when you turn it off, here you go. We're gonna be Showtime.
Yeah, and I mainly looked into the maintenance guy at Penhurst Asylum to get back to asylums and institutions. In Penhurst Asylum, there was this maintenance guy called King. He had a really mean diameter. So he's a lot what people are saying is in the tunnels at the asylum. So yes, he causes a lot of trouble, nuisance. My friend has actually got it on camera for the Travel Channel. He has got it on camera. It sounds like someone's walking down the tunnels. No one was there.
Wow. Well, but you know what? It would make sense if he was the maintenance guy, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we don't know where all he roams, but with him being maintenance and in the tunnels, he has access to all the buildings. So we don't think he actually has a spot. But,
well, and you know what? I wonder if you can't strike that up a little bit more with some tools. And if you don't eventually start hearing like some tools and some maintenance work going on, if it is the maintenance guy.
Yep, because Penhurst Asylum, they don't actually really have a maintenance team. So that makes it even more creepier. Nowadays, they do not have one. It is pretty much the owners, the contractors that come in that volunteer their time to do the maintenance work, cleaning the display cases, putting the sweeping around. I know I gone up there a couple of times just to sweep. I pushed a broom around for a couple hours just to help them out. So there really isn't a maintenance team there anymore. So when you hear someone say anything about the maintenance team up there, secret is to be told, you actually might be talking to the dead.
That is interesting. That is very interesting. All right, we are right out to, I cut 20 minutes out for all my guests, and I still feel like we could chit chat some more. Are you hanging around for the after show?
Yep, I'll be here. I'm here. I'm yours until 2.
We're gonna chat some more then. All right, before we wrap you up, tell everybody again where they can find you, your IG, what you got going on, and then in the after show, we're gonna talk about some more stuff.
Hi guys, I'm Floaty Danny. As we think of things in the after show, please stay tuned afterwards. I will be.
Wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge. Me and Kraken can literally talk for hours, but you can find me on Instagram. Typically, I do work and do producer work for the Travel Channel. There is going to be some new locations that the Travel Channel is going to be covering next year. So please stay tuned, and I will be showing where you can find all that good stuff with the Discovery Plus network. Bye. See you.
He's like, bye. You guys make sure and hit a fave on him before he pops out of that box. He'll be down in the comments as well. So
yeah, I'm going to
thank you, Janie, for coming back on. He will be back on July 7th, you guys. So if you have questions for him and you don't get him in the after show, he'll be back on July 7th. So, all right. If your lights aren't flickering, don't worry. It's probably just the spirits getting ready for this last segment. You're watching Into the Unknown, and I'm your host, Kraken. Before we wrap up tonight, again, I want to make one shout out again to all of y'all about the July 7th Paranormal Investigators Roundtable. And tonight's guest, like I said, Floaty Danny, will be right back in the hot seat for that live event. And we're going to do the entire show is going to be a roundtable. So we won't have the paranormal trivia. We won't have the paranormal news. It's just going to be us talking, doing what we like to do, talking about ghosts. So if you got any questions about spirits, asylums, or anything that bumps in the night, send it my way on IG, because only the best questions will make it through the veil. All right, buckle up. We got 13 minutes left in the show, and I am purposely going over that time, and we will also do the after show afterwards. So, Lugs, if you're recording, we gonna be a little longer tonight. So, all right, if you think the halls were haunted before, you haven't heard the last whisper yet. Tonight, we're trading forest and folklore for something more chilling, man-made monuments of madness and misery. We're talking prisons and asylums, those eerie institutions where suffering was routine and the walls themselves seemed to absorb the agony of everyone who passed through. These places weren't just haunted after the fact, they were terrifying when they were still operating. And long after the last cell slammed shut or the final patient was wheeled away, the energy lingers like a cold breath down your neck. Let's step inside and begin with Eastern State Penitentiary, located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Built in 1829, Eastern State was the first of its kind, introducing the Pennsylvania system of solitary confinement. It wasn't just a prison, it was a radical social experiment. Inmates were kept alone in silence for 23 hours a day. Meals were pushed through a small slot. Hoods were placed over their heads anytime they were moved. What started as a reform experiment quickly devolved into mental torment. The goal? True penitence. That's where we get the word penitentiary. Reformers, including the Quakers, believed solitude and silence would force inmates to reflect, pray, and rehabilitate. But the reality was far more harrowing. Designed by John Howland, Eastern State was the most expensive public building in the U.S. at the time. It had a radial layout, as you see here, a central surveillance hub with long wings of cells extending outward like spokes. Each prisoner had a private cell with a small skylight, nicknamed the Eye of God, reinforcing constant spiritual scrutiny. Inmates were completely isolated, not even allowed to speak or make noise. Guards wore padded shoes, and prisoners again were hooded when moved between locations. If inmates attempted to communicate, they faced punishments like dunking in cold water or the iron gag, a metal collar that tore at the tongue, or extended time in the hole, a windowless underground cell. This extreme form of isolation led many prisoners to suffer severe mental breakdowns, and by the late 1800s, the system was widely condemned as inhumane. One of its most famous prisoners was Al Capone, who served time in 1929 for a concealed weapon charge. Oddly enough, his cell, as you see here, was lavishly decorated with rugs, a radio, and fine furniture, suggesting corruption was alive even within solitary walls. Capone claimed to be haunted during his stay, allegedly tormented by the ghost of James Clark, a victim of the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Eastern State remained operational until 1971, when it was officially closed due to outdated conditions. It sat abandoned for over 20 years, becoming a playground for urban explorers and vandals until restoration efforts began in the 1990s. Now, a museum and major Halloween attraction, it's also one of the most investigated haunted locations in the U.S. Today, Eastern State Penitentiary operates as a museum by day, but when the sun sets, it transforms into one of the most infamous paranormal hotspots in the country. Visitors and investigators alike report chilling experiences like shadowy figures darting between the rusted cells, phantom footsteps echoing through the halls, and whispers that seem to come from nowhere. Cell Block 12, seen here, is especially notorious, filled with disembodied laughter and voices that slither down the long, crumbling corridors. Down in the hole, screams are sometimes heard in the dead of night. Even hardened staff members have refused to enter certain areas alone after being touched or shoved by unseen forces. One of the most well-known incidents came in the 1990s, when a locksmith working to restore a cell claimed he was pinned against the wall by an invisible force. The experience unleashed a flurry of unexplained activity, and many believe it reawakened something that had been dormant for years. Eastern State isn't just haunted, it's emotionally dense, heavy, oppressive. Even the skeptics walked out changed. Now, investigators, you know I love a good haunting, but what if I told you some believe the true horrors of Eastern State weren't just about isolation or ghostly whispers, but about experiments the public was never meant to know about? Let's step into Conspiracy Corner. Rumors swirl that deep beneath the main structure of Eastern State lies a series of sealed-off tunnels, not the ones used for inmate transport, but a subterranean wing allegedly constructed during the 1940s. Why? Well, some claim that during World War II, a quiet deal was struck between the U.S. military and the prison's administration. The official reason? Inmate labor and psychological evaluations. But insiders whisper something far darker. This is where cell block X comes in. Though it doesn't appear on any blueprints, numerous former staff members claim that a small cluster of inmates was moved to a hidden lower level wing during this time, never to be seen again. Allegedly, these prisoners were subjected to isolation-based psychosis studies to test the long-term effects of sensory deprivation. There were radiation exposure experiments under the guise of medical diagnostics, and in the most sinister whispers, paranormal influence testing, where inmates were placed in high EMF environments to see if spiritual contact could be triggered or manipulated. And here's the kicker. More than one paranormal team has picked up strange readings below the cell blocks in areas that don't exist on public maps. EMF spikes, battery drains, and a feeling investigators describe as being watched by something intelligent, but inhuman. Could it all be urban legend? Sure. But in a place where silence was weaponized and pain was policy, it's hard not to believe that something far more secret and far more sinister could be buried beneath the stones of Eastern State. Keep your wits sharp, because in places like this, not everything that's sealed always stays forgotten. Next up, a name that still sends shivers. Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia. Looming over the landscape like a Gothic cathedral of despair, the asylum is one of the most paranormally active, emotionally charged, and historically disturbed locations in the country. Originally designed to house 250 patients in the asylum, built in the mid-1800s, it quickly became overcrowded. By the 1950s, it held over 2,400 souls, many of them confined under brutal, archaic conditions. People were crammed in, many without proper diagnosis, subjected to primitive treatments like lobotomies, insulin shock therapy, and isolation for years. Some patients were dumped there for things like hysteria or disobedience. Others, they never left. People were institutionalized for everything from PTSD and postpartum depression to more sinister and vague reasons like novel reading, spiritualism, or simply being inconvenient to their families. This was not a place of healing. It was a warehouse for the unwanted, where electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and solitary confinement were common practices. And then it was abandoned. But the energy, that stayed behind. Today, the massive Gothic structure is a centerpiece of American ghost lore. Apparitions of former patients, nurses, and even children have been seen wandering the halls. Investigators have captured EVPs, begging for help or simply sobbing. Doors slam on their own. Some visitors report being scratched. The fourth floor, in particular, is known for a tall, dark shadow entity believed to be malevolent. It's the kind of place where the building doesn't feel abandoned, it feels alert. Visitors and investigators have reported disembodied screams echoing through empty corridors. A little girl named Lily, believed to have died tragically within the asylum, who plays with toys left in her former room. Shadows that dart across doorways, tugging on clothes and whispering unintelligible phrases in the ears of the living. And full-body apparitions of former patients, staff, and perhaps something darker. The building's massive footprint, 242,000 square feet, makes it one of the largest hand-cut stone masonry buildings in the U.S., second only to the Kremlin. It's a fortress of forgotten souls, but beyond the hauntings lies something even stranger. Some whisper that during the Cold War, the Trans-Allegheny Asylum was tapped for more than mental health treatment. According to unofficial documents and a few former military contractors, it became a test site for psychic warfare research. Yeah, I said psychic warfare. Under a covert initiative, some likened to MK Ultra, certain patients were selected for advanced observation, allegedly due to their increased sensitivity to the paranormal. These individuals reported seeing spirits, predicting deaths, and even telepathic contact, long before they were institutionalized. Government interest peaked. The theory? These weren't mentally ill patients. They were untapped assets in a race to develop psychic spies, or what some insiders call mind soldiers. The facility's central dome, once thought to be merely architectural flair, was rumored to have been fitted with a signal amplifier, intended to enhance psychic abilities or monitor brainwave patterns from afar. Local ham radio operators have long claimed strange signals still occasionally emanate from that very spot. Even today, paranormal teams report malfunctions in recording equipment, unexplainable voices in foreign languages, and feelings of intense mental pressure inside the wings believed to house the old research rooms. Coincidence? Or is something still running beneath the surface? And let's not forget the West. Nevada State Prison, located in Carson City, Nevada, a location steeped in violence, fear, and spirits that refuse to be silenced. It is one of the oldest penitentiaries in the state, and its energy is just as brutal. From 1862 to 2012, it housed some of the most dangerous criminals in Nevada's history, and was the site of the state's first execution gas chamber. Over 60 men were put to death here. This former prison holds the distinction of being one of the oldest operating prisons west of the Mississippi. It saw everything from Wild West outlaws to modern day criminals, and a whole lot of pain in between. This was not a place for rehabilitation. It was a place of punishment and containment. Built from native sandstone, the prison was carved into the Nevada desert with blood, sweat, and desperation. Executions were routine. Nevada State Prison was home to the first gas chamber execution in the U.S. in 1924. Over 60 executions, many of them witnessed by journalists and family members, and a historic quarry on site where inmates were forced to labor under brutal conditions, some of whom died and were buried in unmarked graves nearby. It's no surprise what lingers isn't just history, it's anguish. Paranormal activity ranges from slamming doors and cold spots to ghostly figures seen in solitary confinement areas. Some former guards have refused to return after hearing voices calling their names or spotting shadowy figures walking in the upper tiers. One particularly creepy detail: people report hearing the sound of a gurney rolling down the hallway near the old infirmary, even though the hallway is sealed off. Since its closure in 2012, Nevada State Prison has become a hotspot for paranormal investigators, and for good reason. Among the most reported experiences are cell doors slamming shut on their own, especially in the solitary confinement block, where inmates were once left to complete darkness for days or even weeks. Reports of disembodied voices of men shouting, crying, or whispering threats echo through the empty corridors. In the execution chamber, many have reported feeling suddenly sick, dizzy, or emotionally overwhelmed, often followed by intense cold spots. And shadow figures are commonly seen lurking near death row, commonly described as tall, fast-moving, and angry. Visitors and guards alike have claimed that even when the prison was fully operational, lights would flicker, typewriters would type on their own, and phantom footsteps could be heard pacing on the catwalks when no one was there. One well-known entity said to haunt the prison is a man named Redmond Red, a former inmate executed in the gas chamber who now reportedly lingers in the area. Investigators have recorded EVPs of a gruff voice saying, "I'm not done." In the former mess hall, another spirit, believed to be a guard who was stabbed to death, has been known to shove people who enter alone. And in the quarry, paranormal teams have captured muffled screams, strange EMF spikes, and one investigator even blacked out after claiming something had grabbed their throat. Whispers persist that during the Cold War and into the 1970s, unofficial psychological experiments were conducted on death row inmates, particularly those sentenced to die in the gas chamber. The theory? That they were dosed with hallucinogens or subjected to isolation-induced psychosis as part of the off-the-books military program that studied mental deterioration under stress. Some say select prisoners were never executed at all. Instead, they were transferred under new identities to participate in these secret trials. Their fates never officially recorded. The location's proximity to Area 51 and other Nevada testing grounds only fuels the fire. Investigators have even found paperwork that hints at missing inmate records and sealed disciplinary files, raising eyebrows among both ghost hunters and conspiracy theorists. Now, one of my favorite locations, no haunted institutions list is complete without Waverly Hills Sanatorium, located in Louisville, Kentucky. Once a tuberculosis hospital, it claimed tens of thousands of lives during the White Plague outbreak, a place where hope and horror coexisted and where the living far too became the dead. If you've wondered about what happens when a building absorbs decades of suffering, sorrow, and slow deaths, Waverly Hills is your answer. From body shoots to children seen playing in the hallways, Waverly has it all. Shadow figures, EVPs, unexplained screams, and sudden emotional breakdowns among guests. The spirit known as Timmy, a young boy, is said to interact with visitors who bring him toys. Some say Waverly isn't just haunted, it's a spiritual gateway. Waverly Hills opened in 1910, initially as a small tuberculosis hospital. But by the 1920s, TB, known as the White Plague, was sweeping across America, and Louisville's Jefferson County was hit hard. With no cure, no antibiotics, patients were often quarantined indefinitely. To meet demand, the hospital was expanded into a massive Gothic structure, capable of holding 400 patients. At its peak, the sanatorium operated as a self-contained city, complete with its own zip code, post office, and even a farm. But it was a city of the dying. Over 63,000 deaths are rumored to have occurred here, though official records suggest 8,000. Regardless of the number, Waverly's halls were saturated in sickness, despair, and desperation. Doctors tried everything: heliotherapy, sunlight treatment, fresh air exposure, painful lung surgeries. And when nothing worked, the bodies had to go somewhere. So they used the body chute, a 500-foot underground tunnel that led from the hospital to the bottom of the hill, where corpses could be discreetly removed without upsetting the still living patients. It's now known by a much darker name, the death tunnel. Patients were often subjected to experimental procedures such as thoracoplasty, where ribs were removed to give the lungs room. Then they would inflate the lungs with balloons, and in some cases, patients were simply left to die alone, monitored only through peepholes in their doors. Waverly isn't just spooky, it's intensely active. Room 502 is infamous. A nurse allegedly hanged herself from the light fixture after becoming pregnant and being shamed by hospital staff. Another nurse is said to have jumped from the window of the same room. Today, visitors report hearing disembodied sobbing, seeing apparitions, and feeling a powerful force urging them towards the window. The death tunnel is a hot spot of shadow figures, cold drafts, and muffled cries from beneath the earth. The children's ward is said to be haunted by a ghost named Timmy, who loves to roll balls down the hallway. Bring a toy, and it might just get moved. And then there's the creeper, a dark, inhuman shadow creature seen crawling along walls and ceilings. Witnesses say it brings a wave of dread so strong it can freeze you in place. Even skeptical visitors leave changed. Rumors have long swirled that Waverly Hills was used for more than just healing. Some conspiracy theorists believe that certain TB patients were subjected to secret wartime medical experiments, possibly under government contracts. The theory claims that some patients were intentionally infected with strains of tuberculosis and other diseases for study, while others were given experimental chemical treatments that led to horrific side effects. Nurses and doctors who discovered the truth either disappeared or were labeled insane. Then there's speculation that room 502 was a target for cover-up. Its connection to 2 nurse deaths perhaps linked more to what they saw than to their personal lives. Though no official documents confirm these theories, Waverly's long history of missing medical records, unmarked graves, and hushed staff stories only deepen the mysteries. What do all these locations have in common? Confinement, despair, repetition. Whether a cell or a padded room, the isolation and trauma within these institutions seem to create a perfect storm for lingering energy. Some spirits may not even know they're dead. Others may simply be reliving their torment on an endless loop. These sites aren't haunted to just test your bravery. They test your empathy. And sometimes they whisper stories no one else was willing to tell. So if you ever find yourself in one of these places, listen closely. Because in haunted prisons and asylums, silence doesn't mean no one's there. All right, before we get locked in for good, or start hearing whispers that aren't part of the show, it's time to circle back and reveal the answers to tonight's haunted trivia round. Whether you cracked the code like a seasoned investigator or took a wild stab in the dark, like a rookie in a haunted cell block, no shame here. Let's see how well you really listen to the spirits and how many answers you managed to set free. Question number 1. What explanation did geologists give for paranormal activity at the Somerville train station? The answer? Shifting tectonic plates and underground gases potentially causing hallucinations and feelings of being watched. Number 2. What legendary cryptid was reportedly seen in Washington's Hoh rainforest? The answer? The thunderbird, also referred to as a thundercrow by the cryptid community. Number 3. What technology is being used to track Bigfoot migration patterns? The answer? An AI-powered map of life that combines footprint data, sightings, and EMF disturbances. Number 4, what theory suggests some patients in historical asylums were actually spiritually gifted? The answer? The idea that symptoms of mediumship or spiritual sensitivity were misdiagnosed as mental illness. Number 5, which Kentucky location is considered one of the most haunted asylums in the world? The answer? Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Number 6, what is the stone tape theory? The answer? It's the idea that traumatic or emotional events can be imprinted into the environment, especially in stone or buildings, and later replayed as hauntings. Number 7, which asylum in Michigan is known for its intense hauntings and urban legends? The answer? Eloise Asylum. Number 8, how many documented UFO sightings has the U.S. reported since 1947? The answer? Over 105,000. Number 9, what is or are Florida Danny's favorite paranormal areas? The answer? Ghosts and hauntings, and most recently, cryptids. Number 10, What is one thing you probably didn't know about Flirty Danny? He lived in an asylum for a year, Penhurst Asylum, and is a medium clairvoyant. And that is a wrap on tonight's Paranormal Trivia Challenge, where every question came with a side of shadows and a dash of deja vu. From asylum echoes to cryptid sightings and aerial anomalies, this round was less about luck and more about how well you've been paying attention to the things that go bump, buzz, and vanish in the night. Was your score high? You're cleared for conjuring. Missed a few? Don't worry, even seasoned investigators get locked in the dark sometimes. So, tonight we walk the halls of the forgotten, through asylums where the echoes still cry out, and prisons where the spirits refuse to be silenced. From misunderstood madness to residual rage, we explored what happens when suffering imprints itself on stone, and why some places never stop whispering. Huge thanks to my guest and fellow